Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear brothers and sisters, I was looking into some books. Islamic history is so expansive, and I thought, you know what, I need to learn a bit more and dive in deeper to take away some key lessons of some of those prominent figures of our past. So I thought I'd ask Sheikh Abid. So I grabbed him, I brought him here, I sat him down, and I thought, Sheikh, I'm going to ask you a few questions. And I wanted to discuss the first thing, and I want to talk about Abu Yusuf, Qadi Abu Yusuf. I know him to be a prominent figure of Islam. I know he was, one of the formative pillars of the Hanafi madhab. But tell me a bit more. What can I know that maybe many people don't know, Sheikh?
So this is fascinating, Asham, because actually people know that there's the four schools of thought. There's the Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi'i, Hanbali schools of thought, right? Yeah. But not as many people are aware that the Hanafi madhab itself is actually a madhab which was founded on, if you like, the shoulders of more than just Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala, who was the greatest. There were the two students as well, and there were others as well, Zufar as well, but the two main ones were Qadi Abu Yusuf, who actually rose from a young age up to the level where in the life of Imam Abu Hanifa, his own teacher, he would see Abu Yusuf, his student, rise to a great level and eventually even become the Chief Justice, not just a judge, but the Chief Justice over there.
He was under Harun al-Rashid, wasn't he?
Correct, absolutely. And then there was also Muhammad Hassan al-Shaybani. And what's interesting is seeing that evolution, because often I think what happens is, don't you think that when we're dealing with sometimes names of the past, these huge luminaries, we only can imagine them in their as
serious study circles
and as finished products, as opposed to thinking of him as a 17-year-old, as a 18-year-old, as a youth, and some of the other scholaresses as well, for that matter. And what you had with Qadi Abu Yusuf, he was a young lad. He says, I wasn't particularly well-to-do. It was one of those scenarios where, do I kind of go down the knowledge, sacred knowledge sciences side of things, or do I take on an apprenticeship in something else and kind of make myself a career in that respect?
So that's completely relatable, isn't it, to just an average 18-year-old coming out of college and thinking about university or taking their deen seriously, maybe a gap year to learn Arabic somewhere, something.
I mean, I can relate to it as well. I mean, ultimately, you'd be at university and you're thinking, which one are you going to pursue this career in engineering, or you're going to be doing Islamic sciences? And ultimately, as Muslims en masse, we have a duty to produce both. Right, but you need some who will actually go in full time in respect of Islamic sciences as well.
So obviously we know what he achieved.
Yeah,
but what can you uncover about his personality then?
So even, I was just going to say, prior to that, his father said to him, very wise advice, we're kind of all indebted to his dad in that respect. He said to his son Abu Yusuf, who was obviously not known to his father as Abu Yusuf, his actual name was Yaqub, right? So Yaqub, look, Abu Yusuf is someone who you can immensely benefit from. So don't take an approach which is lackadaisical.
You mean Abu Hanifa?
He said Abu Hanifa. Sorry,
yes.
I beg your pardon. So Abu Hanifa is someone who you can benefit from so immensely. Don't take a lackadaisical, chilled out approach, and inshallah Allah will provide for you as well. And it happened to Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, who himself had been a merchant, etc., and had his own finances. He started actually offering, in essence, like a bursary to Abu Yusuf. And he said, he just gave him these 100 dinar and said, this is for you. And then every time it would finish, he would kind of be sponsoring him to be studying.
That's amazing.
He saw his potential, his aptitude, and he got behind it.
I think that's something that we need as a community, is we need to see the potential, the capabilities of our youth and finance them, give them stipends, give them bursaries, and kind of
the incentive needs to be there. Yeah. The central incentive, of course, is the right purpose, but it needs to be actually viable. It needs to be something that you can actually do and that people understand this is something that we as a community take seriously.
Yeah.
But anyway, he keeps going on and his knowledge increases, and he actually combined both the sciences of fiqh, Islamic jurisprudence and the like, and also hadith. In fact, some of the, like Imam al-Dhahabi in Sir A'lam al-Nubala, he mentions how the scholars of the past, they would say that they never saw someone from the school that was known as Ashab al-Ra'i, the scholars of kind of reasoning and rationale and fiqh in that manner. They never saw someone who was more strongly leaning towards hadith sciences than Qadi Abu Yusuf. In fact, they said that he was أميل الحديث والمحدثين من أبي يوسف. Right? Even من Abu Hanifa, he said even more so than Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala.
Wow.
So, and Abu Hanifa himself rahimahullah took scholars of hadith of that time, and he himself had studied under them. But Abu Yusuf was even more so. So he was really quite noteworthy in that respect.
When you think of scholars of that nature who are maybe pigeonholed into a specific category, like they're faqih,
I think it's our backward projection really on
yeah, you never really think of them having that expansive, toes dipped in everywhere, right?
Absolutely. I mean, they understood this is Islam. All of it speaks to Islam. Let me try and have as much of a breadth and depth in it. And actually, because he was a full-time committed to the tradition of learning, alhamdulillah, you saw him flourishing in this respect. But I'll tell you what's really interesting. There's a fascinating little anecdote, because you imagine Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, of course, being a very serious personality, and he in his own way was. But this was a relationship which extended for 17, 18 years. Abu Yusuf was with Abu Hanifa for 18 years of his life as an adult, and then studying with him for that period of time every day. You know, they're kind of making niqash, or kind of debating, discussing, considering and reflecting on different masail and situations and scenarios, and figuring out how to reconcile this hadith with that hadith. However, in spite of that, you have to appreciate, and we'll perhaps speak about Imam Malik another day, right? Yeah. Imam Malik was, the genius of his time. Yeah. And he was at the same time a contemporary of Abu Hanifa. Yes. And there are some suggestions, it's not completely established, but Imam Abu Hanifa and Imam Malik did meet one another at one point.
Yeah, I've heard that. I heard that they were the contemporaries, and then you had Ahmed and
Shafi a bit later, right?
Yeah, and they were contemporaries.
And so basically, it's said that Imam Malik and Imam Abu Hanifa, they recognized the intense intelligence the other person had. Imam Malik saying, what a mind with respect to Abu Hanifa. So that shows you, his standing. So what I'm about to say should be couched and understood in that context. He said to Abu Yusuf, he said, "Innaka bati'ul fahm." You're quite slow in understanding. He's saying this to the guy who's going to be the Chief Justice, right? He says, you're slow, but akhrajatka, the thing that made you enable yourself to rise above that was al-muwadhaba, that you were consistent. So he kind of had this resilience, this persistence, just chipping away at it. And I think that's kind of what we often see within ourselves as lacking, that we recognize that we end up looking at the end result, the top of the mountain. Wow. Whereas the mountain climber often, it's not always focused on the top, I imagine, right? It's often about what's the next step? What do I just keep doing right in the here and now in order to move to the next step?
You have milestones, you have the base camp, you have stage 1, stage 2, and you take it as it kind of goes, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And this recognition of consistency was what really helped them. There's another actually almost equally funny anecdote where after some substantial period of time now, Abu Yusuf is, he feels he's seasoned. But Abu Hanifa had a vision for Abu Yusuf to really be able to achieve far greater amounts. In fact, once Abu Yusuf was unwell and there was concern, was he going to make it or not? He was unwell. So Abu Hanifa, visited him, and after several visits, he turned to one of his other colleagues and said, if this young man were to pass away, one of the biggest reservoirs of knowledge that we were hoping to leave behind would be lost. Fortunately, alhamdulillah, he survived. But in that interim, also after he got better, on one occasion, he noticed his student, Abu Yusuf, Imam Hanifa noticed Abu Yusuf was absent from his gatherings. He asked one of his other students, said, "Where is Abu Yusuf?" He said, "He's gone and he's got his own class.
He's now a big sheikh.
He goes back to a pillar and he's got his own little gathering." And he said, So one day, Abu Hanifa was approached by a questioner who said, "I've got a scenario, I just want to understand. I gave my garment to the tailor to kind of alter it, adjust it, its length. And basically, he kept it, right? Initially, he wasn't giving it back. Okay. What's the situation? He basically had the wrong intention, in essence, to steal it.
Is the payment halal?
So he's asked, is the payment allowed? And he said, if he says to you in response, halal, say to him, that's the incorrect answer. And if he says it's not allowed, he said, say that's an incorrect answer as well. So the questioner went up to Qadi Abu Yusuf and said, Qadi Abu Yusuf, or Abu Yusuf at that time, what's the deal? He says, it's halal. And the questioner responds saying, no, that's the wrong answer.
Strange the questioner knows to say that.
And he sits back and says, let me think about it again. He says, no, it's not allowed. He says, also wrong. At this point, he sat back and said, who said she? Right? So it could only be Abu Hanifa rahimahullah. So he went back to Imam Hanifa and says, yeah, Shaykh Imam, tell us what is the right answer. Oh, yeah. And then Imam Hanifa explained, he said, if he reached that wrong intention, kind of to nick that garment, after having done the work, then he still needs to do tawbah, but the payment is allowed because he did the work with the intention of the job in mind, not for himself. But if he stole it first and altered it while thinking it's his own, or his misappropriated garment, then it's not allowed for him.
So Sheikh, Qadi Abu Yusuf, phenomenal person of the past, one of the great scholars. And I think what really touches me about his story is how he was always a student of his teacher, but their relationship was so intimate. I think that's something that we really miss, is we don't have our teachers lifelong with us. Sometimes we do a short
17
course.
years.
17 years is an amazing time. So I think the level of his companionship with his teacher, his constant growth and learning is really exemplary.
I think it's really tempting to kind of try and cut away far sooner than one's sometimes ready and ripened for moving on. And that sense of consistency also.
Yeah, absolutely.
And of course, the fact that, the community made it possible. In that case, it was Abu Hanifa rahimahullah himself. But it's a lesson for us all within our time and in our communities as well, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.